Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Well, Beatles fans, the day is finally here. The new Beatles Anthology Collection has finally arrived. And, we've been talking about it for months. We've had a couple of preview tracks that have come out. A lot of debate about whether or not this thing was going to be worth it because of so much of the duplication from the Super Deluxe editions that we've seen over the years. But it's finally here in our hands and in our ears, and we can decide for ourselves whether or not this ends up being a successful Beatles release or not. I'm sure that there'll be plenty of disagreement about that. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do an unboxing here and show you what you get inside of this if you haven't made your purchase yet, or if you're on the fence about it. I'll also compare it a little bit to the original Beatles Anthology releases so that you can kind of see what's the difference. Maybe you only want to get the Anthology 4 that comes inside the box set instead of buying a whole new box set all over again, and I'd understand if you didn't want to spend all the money to get a bunch of material that you already have. So I'll get into that in a minute. What I want to do as we get started, though, is I want to talk a little bit about what we get here in this new Beatles Anthology Collection. Not a review so much as just a reaction. I've only listened to the new Beatles Anthology 4 that comes in this set. I have not listened to the remastered versions of Anthologies 1 through 3. I'll be getting around to that eventually. I know that I've heard that there's definitely some sonic improvements, so that may be one reason why you might want to invest in the box set to get that sonic upgrade for the materials in the first 3 volumes of the anthology. But as far as Anthology 4 is concerned, here's my thoughts. I've listened to it, and I think that as a single unit, as the 2-disc set that comes on the CD here, it's a nice cohesive listening experience because it goes chronologically. It starts with the early songs and then all the way through to the end of the second disc, runs through the later material, including, of course, the new versions of Free as a Bird and Real Love, and Now and Then, the 2022 single that came out as well. So it feels cohesive in that way as a listening experience just within that volume. But what I really liked about the original 3 volumes of the Beatles Anthology was that they also felt like storytelling as you listen to Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. It was an enjoyable listening experience to go on that journey. Volume 4 doesn't feel like a journey. And that's something that, to me, I question a little bit about the decision to handle the new Anthology Collection in that way. When we look at what they did last year with the Red and Blue albums, they resequenced the tracks and added some new tracks into those collections within the existing track list. They didn't just throw in an extra disc of material. They actually resequenced both the Red and the Blue albums. Now, again, that's a controversial choice, I suppose. They could have done that here, too. They could have taken all of the tracks that we find on Anthology 4 and mixed them into the appropriate places within Anthologies 1, 2, and 3. That would have made a lot of sense, arguably, because then we would have had a nice, long, cohesive storytelling journey across those 3 expanded volumes. What you have here in the new version is you still have the journey across volumes 1 through 3, but then 4 kind of seems like a little bit of a rewind and odds and sods, to borrow from The Who there. Just kind of throwing a few pieces together, and then, of course, repeating the songs Real Love and Free as a Bird that were already included on earlier volumes of the anthology. So, yeah, I'm a little bit puzzled by that choice to handle the material that way. Of course, if they had mixed those songs in with the existing material, maybe it wouldn't have flowed as nicely because of the duplication of some of the song titles with the different takes and different versions and demos and things like that. But I guess I would have still preferred that they presented the entire thing chronologically rather than chronological volumes 1 through 3 and then volume 4 kind of a recap with some new material thrown in. So speaking of the new material, and I'm going to open this up, but I'll go through it all in a more of an unboxing kind of way in a minute. I want to talk about a few of the tracks here. A lot has been talked about the duplication from the Super Deluxe Edition box sets. And yes, absolutely, if you've been picking up all of those box sets along the way in terms of like starting with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band when the 50th anniversary Super Deluxe Edition came out for that, all the way through the Revolver set that came out a couple of years ago, then yeah, you're going to see a lot of duplication. In fact, almost all of the second disc in the Volume 4 of the Beatles Anthology is duplicative tracks from those Super Deluxe editions. But, what makes sense if you think about it is on disc 1, again, we're going chronologically in this set. So disc 1 starts with the early material and then reaches about the halfway point around that, Revolver era. We haven't had Super Deluxe editions for any of the early albums yet. So there are no big box sets for them to duplicate those tracks with. So disc 1 is the freshest material that you have in this volume 4 of the Beatles Anthology. So, I get it. If they had gone ahead and given us what we've all asked for, the Rubber Soul Super Deluxe Edition, I'm sure we would have seen duplication of that here. But in terms of, stuff that is previously released material, on disc 1 of this, they note that tracks 1 and 2, I Saw Her Standing There, and Money, are previously released. But it's worth noting the versions of those that are on here have not been released on a physical media format, on CD or vinyl in the past. Those were digital only releases, actually, and you can find it on streaming services still. There's 56, 57 tracks that they released to beat the copyright laws in the UK. Those 2 tracks were part of that collection, but they haven't been released on CD or vinyl before. So although they're previously released, technically speaking, this is the first time that we're seeing them physically released. Track 3 on this set is This Boy, and it's also previously released, but you may not have that unless you have the Free as a Bird CD single that came out back when that song was first released. This EP features Free as a Bird, of course, but also has additional tracks, This Boy, I Saw Her Standing There, and Christmas Time Is Here Again. That's maybe a little bit of a rarity. So even though you may own the other 3 anthology releases, if you don't have the Free as a Bird single EP, then that particular track, This Boy, may not be part of your collection. So again, the first 3 songs that are on Beatles Anthology 4, technically previously released, but chances are you don't have them in your physical media collection. So, I'd consider that a plus. But the flip side to that is, looking at the Free as a Bird EP, it's worth noting that Anthology 4 does not include the other 2 tracks that are on here, nor does it include any of the tracks from the Real Love EP that came out as well. So that's got some additional tracks that were left off the original 3 volumes of the anthology that I guess I would have hoped they might have included all of the B-sides, so to speak, from this series on Anthology 4. But the only one of those that made the cut was This Boy, track 2 on Anthology 4. While we're talking about physical media, I'm going to throw one little bonus thing at you, and this is the Beatles Anthology 2. This is a sampler disc. When Anthology 2 came out, I was working in a record store at the time. We listened to the hell out of that in the record store, and they sent us this promo copy of songs. There's 10 tracks on here, selections from Anthology 2, and I was lucky enough to draw the short straw, whatever you want to call it, among the staff at the record store, that I got to keep this one and add it to my collection. So I'm proud to have that little promo item there. Anyway, Anthology 4, it's a reasonably satisfying listening experience for me from start to finish. As I said, it goes chronologically, so that feels good. But it also feels very rushed. Unlike the more sprawling pace that we get spread across the 6 discs of anthologies 1 through 3. So I don't feel as satisfied listening to these 2 discs by themselves. I really do wish they would have put everything in chronological order. As for the new songs, the new mixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love, I really prefer the original versions of those. When I listen to Free as a Bird, the new 2025 mix of that, yes, John's voice is much cleaner on that, but it was a demo when he recorded it, so it still sounds very weak and thin because he's really not putting any gusto behind that vocal. And the fact that they've cleaned it up so much using Peter Jackson's technology, I think at the base of that, it just makes it sound to me all the thinner. I think that the way they handled his voice in the original release of Free as a Bird, with that kind of I don't know, ethereal quality to it. We all knew that John had passed and that he wasn't there with the rest of the Beatles in the studio to do that new version of the song. Somehow it felt more appropriate to me back in the mid '90s when they released that, so I prefer that to the version that we've got here, the new 2025 mix. I'd say the same thing of Real Love. I do think that the vocal is better in the mix of the 2025 mix of Real Love than the 2025 mix of Free as a Bird, but I still prefer the original release from Anthology 2 of Real Love. But your mileage may vary on that. There's some other tweaks that they've done to the mix as well. But for me, and maybe it's just nostalgia, I'm going to go back to the Anthology 1 and 2 versions of those songs. That's going to be my preferred versions of Free as a Bird and Real Love to listen to. And of course, Now and Then, that song, we've all talked about that quite a bit over the last few years. This is the third time now that it's seen a physical release, because it was originally released on a single, and then it was added to the Red and Blue albums when those came out last year. So now here we have it on Anthology 4. Makes sense for it to be here with the other new songs, but again, it's certainly far from being an unreleased piece of material there. All right, let's get into it. All right, first and foremost, obviously, when you compare the two editions of the Beatles Anthology that we've had released, the original three that came out were released in these double-wide white jewel boxes, very familiar to the double CD releases that we used to have back in the day. This new version here, as far as the size of it, probably comes in about almost the same size as, from a width perspective, as two of the sets, as opposed to all three. So it's a little bit more compact. Of course, when you do look inside here, they are the cardboard style packages. You know, this is pretty much par for the course for CDs anymore. Nothing comes in a plastic jewel box anymore. In fact, before I started recording today, the thought occurred to me about how rarely we do see CDs in jewel boxes anymore. So I actually looked through all of my purchases that I've made so far in 2025, just as a point of comparison, and all the new releases that I've picked up. Almost none of them were in jewel boxes. Practically all of it came out in cardboard sleeves. So that's, you know, I've had a number of viewers on this channel comment about they hate the cardboard because it's not as protective of the discs that are inside. And I get it. But no surprise to see, of course, that these are in cardboard sleeves as well. I do want to comment a little bit about the packaging. I'm a fan of compact box set packaging, slipcases like this, because this fits very nicely into my CD collection behind me here. It's easy to fit this on the shelf as opposed to the larger boxes that you end up having to keep somewhere else. I like to be able to have that right there with the rest of my music, so that's appreciated. In this case, what we have is the slipcase, as I mentioned here. We'll see that in a second. There's this band that wraps around it. It's well thought out because, of course, it as you look at that, it does have the Beatles Anthology Collection here on the side, and it duplicates that so that as you move that, it's you're not covering up any artwork or heavy display in a weird way. Same thing on the front of this set. The picture that they've got of the Beatles here aligns nicely with the logo. It's covering up the classic artwork that we have here, but it still looks like a thought out piece. And on the back, the same thing. We've got this paragraphs here that explain what this new anthology collection is, and the band isn't covering anything up other than your artwork there. We'll look at that in a second. But you got the full track list on the back of this band in tiny print. So there's all the songs inside your new Beatles anthology. Let's go ahead and get into it here. So this is the box, the slipcase, without that exterior band on it. You've got that classic artwork there. No surprises to it. The spine is pretty simple. You get the same type of artwork on the back there too. The bottom of the barcode. So you don't have a track list on the back of the box anymore. That was only on the band that was wrapped around it. But inside we do have all of the 4 volumes of the anthology. So let's take a look at those. One thing I want to comment to you about is, because I don't think we need to necessarily go through every single one of these, but here's Anthology 1. Compared to the original Anthology 1, obviously the cardboard case is much thinner and slimmer than the original plastic case. But other than the obvious changes to the packaging there, cardboard versus plastic, it's not a huge difference here. On the back, it's pretty much the same. So you do have the track list on the back of both versions of this. A little bit of a layout difference there, but ultimately it's kind of the same. As we open it up, and by the way, what you'll see here inside, this layout here that you see in Anthology 1, it's absolutely identical across all 4 volumes. They all look exactly the same when you open these up. No difference at all in the interior artwork for any of these new anthology pieces. They've all got the panorama artwork there, as well as the booklets that are tucked into a little pocket there. Also worth noting, the discs that we have on the inside here, pretty much exactly the same as the original anthology discs. So there you go. I mean, you're not really seeing any major changes from a design perspective on any of these things. So that's Anthology 1. Also, as I mentioned, we've got the booklets that are tucked in here. I looked through them. Same booklets. The booklets that you have in Anthology 1, 2, and 3 are identical to the booklets that you already may have in your original CD versions from 30 years ago of the Beatles Anthology. So no changes at all to those. Well, let me qualify that. There is a minor design change that I'll show you here, and that's on the back cover. So now on all of the new anthology discs, they look like this on the back with these the number of the anthology as well as a small kind of credits box there. Slightly different than what we have in the original series here, where the original discs just had this Beatles Anthology 1 with no credits listed underneath it. So minor difference, but otherwise the booklets in the new versions of the anthology are identical to the Beatles Anthology booklets that you already have in your existing CD collection. So Beatles Anthology 1 right there. Like I said, I don't think we really need to go through the rest of the Anthology 2 and 3. It's all the same. No surprises. There's the artwork there in the middle, exactly like Anthology 1. And then here's Anthology 3. That up. All the artwork's the same. The discs look the same. So no new and exciting things for us to dig into with that. But let's talk about Anthology 4. You've already seen the cover art for this. Not super exciting. It's just that panorama, which makes sense because it is, after all, kind of rewinding and going back through the entire journey, as I've been calling it, of the Beatles across volumes 1 through 3. And now volume 4 is just sort of, going back and picking up the pieces a little bit. As we open that up, again, no surprises here at all. The artwork is all pretty much identical to what we've seen with the other 3 volumes that I showed you already. There's the back with the track list. We talked a little bit about some of those, and of course you can find that online if you want to read more about that. And on the back of the booklet, similar to the other ones too, it's the Beatles Anthology 4 with a small bit of credits there. All right, what I'm going to do as briskly as I can for you, and you can pause the video if you feel like it. I will page through all the pages of this Beatles Anthology 4 booklet so that you can see the artwork that's inside, because chances are you don't need to see the booklets for volumes 1 through 3 because you probably already have those in your collection. They've been around forever. So let's just look at what's new. Beatles Anthology 4. I will go ahead and flip through the booklet here for you so that you can kind of get a peek and see what to expect there. But again, no real surprises. It's a lot like what you've already got in the other volumes. So I will just page through it for you. And I will say, I'm looking forward to reading, so to speak, these liner notes, just like I did back in the day when the original anthology came out, because it's good to get that context for each of these takes and what was going on in the studio when these recordings were originally made, or in some cases we've got like the BBC rehearsals and things like that. So it is handy as you're listening to hear some of these unreleased takes and say, okay, what was going on there on that particular day. of course, the Beatles recording history is well documented in books and online, so there's a lot more information available on this stuff than just what's in this booklet. But handy to have it to reference as you're listening to Anthology 4 or the other 3 volumes for that matter. Again, the format here is exactly what you would expect based on the previous releases. They're not reinventing the wheel in any way whatsoever. Almost to the end here. And there you go. The Beatles Anthology 4, the CD release for that, which is part of the new Beatles Anthology Collection box set. Available now. I've got the CD, of course. Many of you are vinyl fans. The vinyl version is also available. You know that when it was announced originally, the box set was all that was going to be available. There was great outcry from the fans who said, I don't want to have to repurchase all of the volumes 1 through 3 just to get my hands on volume 4. And then lo and behold, the Beatles listened and responded and said, oh no, you can buy Beatles Anthology 4 separately now. I, for one, don't think that was a response to fan criticism. I think they planned to do it that way all along, but had hoped that they would get a bunch of pre-orders on the box sets for a week or two before they made the announcement of the original release. Maybe that's just me being, skeptical or whatever. But I do think that's the case. For me, I still wanted to go ahead and get the whole new collection box set. But your budget and your preferences may vary on that. So you can get the Anthology 4 on its own if you choose to, or the box set also available. A lot of you have probably found it on your doorstep today too, just like I did, and are excitedly digging into the new material. However, if you do have an interest in adding this to your collection, you can find links to it in the description below, and I appreciate if you do click on those if you order, because it does help support this channel here. So, Beatles Anthology 4, I look forward to seeing your comments. What do you think about the selection of the music here? What do you think about the way that it was all assembled with the new Anthology 4 versus spreading out the music across multiple discs, a la the Red and Blue albums from last year? Would you prefer if they'd done it that way? And of course, there's the stuff like Carnival of Light that didn't make the cut here, and the extended version of Helter Skelter. There's a lot of stuff that we still haven't seen released yet. So, what it was. Is there going to be an Anthology 5 someday? Who knows? Time will tell. Anyway, look forward to seeing your comments on all things Beatles Anthology. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Plus, check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to click subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.